What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical on me. It is 5 o'clock on the dot on the East Coast, 2 o'clock on the West Coast, 4 o'clock Tennessee time, which, of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It is called Grinderslive. Joining me today, it was so much fun yesterday, Grant. You raised the bar so much, the class of the show so much, especially with your hotel reference. We had to get you back, so we much appreciate it.
I like how you still don't believe me about the hotel thing.
There's some things we went off the rails a little bit. It was a short slate. We might go off the rails once again because, well, it's a 6-game slate right now. It might be a 5-game slate soon. We would like the assistance of one chief meteorologist, Kevin Roth, as far as what's going down in that Yankee game, or they might just cancel the game. Who knows? We shall see. Roth usually updates his article around 5:15-ish, give or take. Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, of course, he'll be all over it. He'll let us know. He'll go ahead and drop it in chat. What chat is that, Grant? That is the YouTube chat. What's up, YouTube? Like, subscribe. You know the whole deal. You should like and subscribe because we're rolling out a ton of football content. Basically, every single day of the week, there's a football show going on. There's the ASA show is going to be on later on this evening or sometime. It's not going to be live, I don't think, but it'll be on sometime later this evening. That is going to be Brandon Adams, who's friggin' brilliant. If you guys aren't aware of Brandon Adams. Stewart as well, who works with him there at ASA, and I think Blender will be hosting it. We're also giving away Grant. Do you know football's happening? Football. Are you ready
what?
for it? Yeah.
I've got to go do some research, guys.
Yeah, that's happening. Well, you did the podcast yesterday for Football for the Morning Grind, so hopefully you're just joking and you are actually well researched.
What if I just took a forget-me-not?
Yeah. So later on, there's going to be crunch time between us, obviously, but leading up to I think it's normally premium, but tonight it happens to be free. As far as the showdown slate, the Chiefs, they're going to be taking on the Texans from Houston, and it's going to be fabulous. I have some tickets there on DK, so I have to play. I can't hoard them any longer. We're going to be playing, I think maybe like 10 or so or something like that. I think it's for $1 million. Is that correct, Grant? Do you know?
I believe so. I entered it twice. I don't know what I did.
I mean, your lineup's going to be duplicated, though. You're not actually going to win the $1 million unless you have something super goofy.
I mean, I went pretty goofy.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But that show's going to be free. It's going to be Tambo and the Luch. And Tambo's also going to be a part of our Sunday stuff. Sunday from 10 o'clock in the morning all the way up to kickoff, we are free, including myself and Grant and Beer Makers fan. It's a whole slew of people. It'll be good times for sure. I think it's 10 a.m. all the way up to 11 a.m. on the East Coast, 3 hours of free content. And again, just hit the subscribe deal because the bell's going to be going off like nuts because there's a whole bunch of shows going out there. Grant, are we excited about the slate, the 6-gamer, which may be a 5-gamer? Yeah, we can't put the lipstick on the pig. We can't do it, right? It's not great.
No, it's really terrible. I hate it. But those are generally ones that for some reason I win money.
Well, that's the thing is that we're all playing with the same gross slate. And do you want the Cole game, the Yankee game, to get canceled? What do you want? What are you hoping for in that? As far as do you have an angle on that? You're thinking.
I hope it gets canceled.
Yeah, I don't know what I want. I hope it gets canceled really late, like right up to the bell, basically. But I got a feeling it's just going to get knocked out in the next 20 minutes or so. We shall see. Stay tuned on that. We also want to mention, Grant, you and I, we have the perks here working at RG. We get this stuff for free. But the RG Core4 Premium, Which, by the way, you know what's in Core 4 now? Hockey got the bump. Golf is in there. Football, baseball, basketball, and golf. Golf's taking it over. Core 4, you get yourself a discount here. I believe it's $5 off with this code that Devin's going to go ahead and drop in chat for you guys. I'm not going to read it off for you guys. Just click it. You get, I think it's $5 off, I want to say, as far as the monthly RG Core4 Premium, which gets you all the good stuff. Gets you the Weather Edge as well, too. Ross Weather Edge is also popping as far as the under today with Chicago. We saw it yesterday, and Grant, I'm sure you were freaking out and saying, "Oh, you Darvish, he's the worst." He gave up 3-run homer in the first inning, and that was a 6.5 total. And the final score in that game was 3-0. That was it.
I'm fairly certain that I bet the under a large amount of money for that game, as I said on the show.
Well, there you go, money bags. Congratulations.
You know what's weird?
What?
I barely lost any money last night with 0 Braves. 0.
I won American dollars last night, and I had 0 Braves.
I didn't play cash though. I only played tournaments. Yeah, that's like I only played big field tournaments, and like 60% of my lineups ended up cashing.
I'm angry because like last year I would tell everybody how terrible Jordan Yamamoto is, and I kept stacking against him with Cardinals like multiple times, and it kept not working out, and he kept getting lucky. And last night, Jordan Yamamoto, he found the regression hit hard. He just took a bludgeoning. I think he pitched like 2 or 3 innings, gave like 13 runs. And like, somebody's got to go out there and pitch. So, he's the one. He drew the short straw. And Adam Duvall hit 3 homers, at least 1 grand slam, 9 RBI. Acuna went nuts. Freeman went nuts. Albies.
You could just name the entire lineup outside of one person.
Yeah, the chat said Freddie won him so much money. And I don't think we talked about the Braves. Like, they were like a fine team, but they were kind of, and we talk about the ballpark. That's the only thing we talk about the Braves, but we're just like, they're there.
Well, the funny thing is, I thought it would be a low-scoring night. Ooh, I was not correct.
And the day slate, I didn't play a day slate, but I think Milwaukee put up a 19 spot on, was it Detroit they played? I don't recall. But imagine it wasn't all on one slate, but that would have been fun if those 2 games were on the same slate for sure. All right, tonight's slate. Oh, before you do that, let's give me your sharp side winner. You talk about you won a bunch of American dollars last night in the under for Chicago. If we fire up Kevin Ross Weather Edge, we want to hit the refresh button just to make sure it's still good and clear as far as the wind blowing in, and it's going to be chilly. I think, still 75 games, 39% as far as this degree. Limited, less, 39% less. I could not think of that word. My adjectives are hard, Grant. So you get 39% homers in a 75-game sample when the weather is the way it is, 18% as far as runs take a hit, and a 21% decrease in ERA. And that leads us right into the sharp side winner. Who's your sharp side pick today, Grant?
It's the under on that game. It's very, very clearly the under on that game. I think, I don't know. I've got it at I've got it under 7 and under 7.5. If you guys actually bet on sites, I think this on real gambling sites, FanDuel and the Score have them at 7, while DraftKings, FoxBet, and MGM have them at 7.5. But I took 7 and 7.5 because there's plus 108 on the juice on the under for 7 on those sites. So I like both of those bets because of the high juice. But yeah, I've got both of them.
Yeah, and you're in a state where you can partake legally. You don't have to know a guy. You don't have to get your shoe shined and pass the money to somebody like that. So just for the record, you're in Colorado, right? Colorado based?
Yep. I'm in Colorado, and there's now William Hill and the Score are both live here. So I've got 15 tabs open right now, predominantly gambling and DFS sites. I just have one window that's open with every one window that's open with every gambling and DFS site, and one that has like 20 FanGraphs and RG tabs.
That's basically what I have too, and I got DK and I have FanDuel, and that's just, and I have my email just for some reason. I should probably close that one because who needs that? All right. Hey, if Garrett Cole pitches tonight, I know he's given up a pile of homers, just a ridiculous amount of homers this year. If you want to get all technical, it's 2.25 per 9, which is a monster number. Of course, when people aren't homering off from, he's giving up he's striking out with 33% of his hitters, which is a decrease from last year, I want to say, but still a big number, obviously. And that should go down in theory. The homer and the fly ball rate is 22.4%. He is giving up 46% fly balls, which is a good bit as well, too. I think that is the highest in the slate. Nope. The highest in the slate is Madison Bumgarner because he is the worst. Better at rodeo. For real. All right. Talk to me about Cole. Let's say that game is all of a sudden clear somehow. The skies are good to go in New York. Cole is pitching. He's throwing baseballs. We have to like him, right?
Yeah, no, he's probably the top option on Slate. If that ends up happening, the Slate pitching is just absolute trash on the Slate. And so much of the chalk is going to land on certain guys where I don't really want to go. So, yeah, if Cole becomes available and is actually an option, he's the top option on the Slate, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it is either. This is the weather report a couple hours ago, orange. Let's see, I'm clicking the refresh on it. Did we get an update here, Devin? I don't think so. Devin will definitely let us know, and he'll put it in the chat for sure. We did get an update. Okay. Okay, so it's still orange currently in New York. Just looks messy upstream. I can go ahead and just drop this link in chat, or Devin can do it. Yeah, so he's all over it. He's got you guys there in chat. He's saying there's a scenario. Well, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and read it. It's orange, and it's not looking good. And, obviously he's going to be on crunch time after this show. Take you guys all up to lock, and we'll give you a cleaner look. But it's looking dicey at best. Of course, if the game goes, if it's good to go, Cole is a really, really strong play. Grant, let's say Cole's not an option. Then what are we doing?
I mean, most people are going to be playing Paddock. So I'm going to give you the two different ways to approach this. Mm-hmm. Go by the actual numbers, and you play Paddock, you play Gray, you play Arrieta. It's what everyone's going to do. Gray is currently pegged at 37% ownership. Arrieta is pegged at 28% ownership, packs at 45%. And it makes entire sense. Some people go down to Fleming's. That's also fine. Like, that's also a good way to go. Ownership's going to be so high on all those guys. I don't think it's the right move. None of them really stand out as great plays outside of Paddock, which Paddock really doesn't stand out as great of a play as he actually is. Like, he's got a 24% K rate on the season, 3.71 xFIP. He's been very good versus righties and not so good versus lefties.
Correct.
We look at the San Francisco lineup. They're a lineup that strikes out at just a mediocre amount. Like, nothing great, nothing terrible, but three of their best bats are all lefties. I think that you're probably better off fading Paddock in tournaments, and I'm probably going to stack the Giants a decent amount.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the sticks in a second as far as the Giants, and I hear you as far as Yaz and Belt, and you're right. The splits are pretty dramatic. You can see that on let's fire up the play at IQ. Let's take a look at it. We have time. It's only a six-game slate. The last two seasons. You want last two seasons or just this year? What do you want, Grant?
Let's just go this year.
All right. I prefer a bigger sample, but fair enough. I will yield. The Ks are pretty good. They're not elite. They're pretty good, 24.2%, which is fine. The walks are great, 4.5% as far as the walks. But just to speak to the splits as far as lefty and righties, he's dominating them. 30.2% strikeout rate, 1.2% walk rate. That's one walk. We're talking about 86 plate appearances. That's one walk. One guy says, I'm not going to swing. The Wob was pretty good there, 315 as well. He has given him some power, 229 as far as the ISO, for what it's worth. But, the righties is what you're talking about. I'm sorry, the lefties. I'm flipping it in my head. But the Ks are only 19.6% versus lefties. The walks are still pretty good, 7.1%. Giving him some power, giving him some hits as well, too, with the Woba. But the question that I have for you, Grant, and whenever you decide you're going to fade somebody, and I hear what you're saying. He's got a pretty big name now, and he's a guy that hasn't exactly taken a big leap from last year. He's just still pretty good, better than average, but not, exceptional. Still young, still kind of figuring things out. You got to roster somebody, and if you're not going to roster Paddock, and, Gray is, of course, lurking as well, too, at Contra, and you talk about Arrieta, who's just a disaster. I mean, he's a professional innings eater now, essentially. He's not going to strike out a bunch of dudes. He's got the Marlins in a nice ballpark, and yeah, I guess he can eke his way to 12 points, and could be fine. That could be enough in the slate, especially if you have the Giants and the Giants smash and Paddock gets, chased pretty quickly, you're good to go. But yeah, my question is, if you're not playing Paddock, who is your pivot?
So if I'm not playing Paddock, like maybe Gray, but realistically, what are the odds that Gray ends up putting up a terrible score?
Yeah, I don't know, 20%, 15%. He was a disaster last time. We talked about this pre-show really briefly, and there are a few. I don't know if red flags. So they're right. There's some warning labels, I suppose. The velocity was down. They gave him an extra day or two, so he got chased. I think after one inning, or maybe not even a full inning, and they still gave him some extra time to kind of sort of figure some things out. And maybe that's they know something's wrong with him. I don't know, but of course he's pitching in that ballpark today in Chicago, which is going to subdue power tremendously. So, and that lineup for Chicago is, not particularly imposing either. You talk about that total, you like the under, and I guess we can talk about his opponent in a second too, who he's really interesting because he's got a lot of Ks and a lot of walks. I'm not sure if you've seen Adbert Alzolay. His pitch count, he went 78 pitches last time, didn't go through 3 just because he walked 5 people, but he also struck out 4 dudes. But I think it's a little more interesting on FanDuel probably, and more for tournaments only, just because of the extremes of what we've seen so far out of him. Good Ks, which is interesting, but just walking the world. And doesn't matter what the weather is, Grant, if you can't throw strikes, who cares? What's the point? And he'll get chased pretty quickly. So talk to me about Gray, because again, you said you like the under that game as a general thought. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't feel great. I'm not playing a lot of cash today. Very little cash, actually. It's mostly tournaments for all the reasons we're talking about. A lot of questionables. So talk to me about Sonny Gray first.
So Sonny Gray, boom or bust. I prefer him to Paddock, just because the weather is. It's real simple. Like Gray's going to put up a get outing if he can find the strike zone. Like last outing, 3 walks. Outing before that, 2 walks. Outing before that, 4 walks. Like he's been walking a lot of guys, which is pretty much every single outing where he's walked more than one guy. He hasn't performed that great. So it's all dependent on his location. It's all dependent on that. So I like him. I like him a lot. He's going to be less owned. So Gray's a guy that I'm probably going to end up using. My plan is to full on fade Paddock. Like outside of cash, I'm going to full on fade Paddock because he's like the matchup isn't as great as everyone thinks it is. Like lots of chances he can get blown up. So going into game theory and stuff like that a little bit, like you look at, not that I want to give any credit to Cardi at all.
Oh, God forbid.
But like you look at the bat and you look at floor ceiling, I think that's 20th percentile outcomes. You look at Paddock's 20th percentile outcome for ceiling, it's 28. For floor, it's 6. So there's a 20% chance that he ends up with less than 6. The mean outcome for him is not that much higher than Sandy, not that much higher than Fleming, who I actually don't know if I want to use. And you look at the rest of the guys on the slate, any number of things can happen. I'm using Aslay, just real simple. He's cheaper than Paddock. He's going to come in at 1/4 the ownership. Based on numbers, his ceiling is close to the same. I get that he walked 5 guys in the last outing, but that really doesn't matter to me. That's you're using way too much recency bias, which is more likely going to drop his price down. But you look at the weather out there, it's very good weather. It's very good for pitching. He can absolutely put up a monster outing if he can get up to 85 pitches, and he can have a little bit of control. Like he's always been a guy that struggled a little bit with walks, but nothing this drastic or as drastic as he did in his last outing. The Ks are there because he's a little bit wild. Wind blowing in from the outfield will add a few miles per hour to his fastball in all likelihood, which should help things. Like I really like him today. The more and more I've looked at this slate, the more and more the ownership's playing out. So I'm probably going to be using him a lot. And then Sandy is going to come in at way less ownership than Arrieta. In terms of actually giving you a ceiling, he's got a higher ceiling than Arrieta. Like it's that simple. He's striking out lefties at a huge rate, mostly because he's a little bit wild with them. But he's not giving up as much runs as his xFIP says it should, and sometimes that's just the case with guys. Sometimes that's just how it goes. It's being played in Miami, so you look at the hard contact numbers for lefties, which is what you worry about, and I'm not as worried about that because it's over in Miami, the fly ball numbers, and against righties, he's obviously a big ground ball pitcher. So Sandy is a much better play than Arrieta, and I can't even remember how
I agree with you. I agree with you on Sandy Alcantara. First start back from COVID, he wasn't very good. He got beat up by, I think, Tampa got him pretty good. But his first start of the year was against Philadelphia, and he was solid there, if you care about those kind of things. And
in his last start against Tampa, he put up 28.
And he also threw 101 pitches. So, I feel good about that as well. And Arrieta, again, professional innings eater. He should be okay. Like you said, if you're talking ceilings, I do agree, and I'm sure the bat speaks to this as well. Like, the ceiling of Arrieta, if everything goes perfect, is like 20, I guess. I don't know, 22. What's the most Arrieta can realistically?
I mean, complete game shutout. So
yeah, we're rounding up here. Couple notes here. If you fire up the old lineup HQ, we have some umpire data. You ready for this one? Buckle up. Extreme pitchers umpire for Sonny Gray and Alzolay. So that's good for your under. And maybe Alzolay won't walk 17 dudes. Maybe he'll just walk 12.
I mean, so a guy that's wild, extreme pitchers umpire is huge. A guy that just throws strike, it's not really that relevant. So this is a perfect spot. I'm probably I don't like this, but I'm probably going 100% Sandy, Gray, and Alzolay. Like, that's the only 3 pitchers you should probably be using right now in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sprinkle in some Paddock, but I get what you're saying.
Nope, ball's out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't. This is not. Is this a Manscaped promo all of a sudden? What just happened?
I mean, I think they are a sponsor of many of our pods.
And
they do make my balls smooth as eggs.
I heard Beer. Beer does a 6-pack. He's going to be joining us on Sundays for the NFL show, 10 o'clock. Check it out. It's going to be good times for sure. But he does, when he does a 6-pack, he does his Manscaped promo in the middle of it. And just, it's just amazing. I
really need to upgrade to the 3.0. I've only got the 2.0.
Oh, they spent, if I remember the commercial correctly, the read, 18 months refining it and getting it perfected. So
I mean, there's a light, so I can shave in the dark.
Yeah, well, I didn't get that. He's like, they have a light. Like, is that a problem for people?
I mean, I don't know what the lighting's like in your bathroom. Like, and a lot of people do in the shower. Showers can be a little bit darker because who wants to see themselves naked? Gross.
Back to the slate. We have 2 umpire datas, and the 2 guys we have are both extreme pitchers umpire. We do have Dustin May and Mad Bum with extreme pitchers umpire as well. I'm not I don't care who's calling balls and strike. Leslie Nielsen from Naked Gun could be back there, and I'm not going to roster Mad Bum versus these Dodgers. It's an old reference for the kids, but you guys know that. You probably know the gif. He calls the strike before the ball is even pitched, basically. How about Dustin May? Can he strike some people out, possibly? Maybe.
I think that he can. He's got decent stuff. He's obviously not been that. Well, he hasn't been bad this season, but he hasn't been striking out guys a large clip. But you look at this Arizona team, and they definitely are not very good. Like, you look at the lineup, there's Calhoun, there's Walker, there's Peralta, and there's Escobar. Everything else is trash. Like, Marte's not in that lineup, which is a big upgrade. He obviously just got put on the IL yesterday. Like, Rojas, decent prospect, but just hasn't really done too much. You got John Jay, who's just horrible, and I hate him. But, like, looking at this lineup, there's not a ton of guys that you're really worried about.
Jay cracked the lineup for the record. Van Meter's in there.
Van Meter?
Yeah.
I mean, that adds a little bit more Ks, but a little bit more volatility.
Power. A little more power, but, like, anybody has more power than John Jay in 2020, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I have more power, and that's not saying much. But, yeah, like, that lineup is not great. And yes, it has a bunch of lefties, but he strikes out lefties at a higher clip. Like, he's got 22% K rate versus lefties compared to an 18% K rate since the beginning of last year. And even this year, it's kind of hold the same. Like, with the umpire data that we now have, he's going to come in at 10% ownership. I might mix him in it just because, like, using 3.
Well, it's all predicated based upon what happens with Cole, right? If Cole doesn't pitch, that's a lot of ownership to go around. So that'll shake the whole slate up.
Yeah, but I think most people are just going to go from Cole down to Sonny or down to Paddock.
Like, I think most people already have one of those with Cole.
I mean, it's possible.
Maybe. Yeah.
But, I mean, pitching on this slate, if you want to try and win a tournament, best thing you could possibly do is fade Paddock, fade Arrieta. I don't know if you want to fade Gray, but fade him and just go with the rest. Like, any number, this is baseball. Any number of things can happen. I mean, it's a spot where ownership does not reflect reality. I mean, you can even go Cahill. Like, honestly, I know San Diego is very good, but it's being played in San Diego, which is pretty much a neutral ballpark in terms of power. There are some strikeouts in that lineup. I know they've been hot. I know they've been good, but Cahill has a decent K rate on this season. Pivoting from him or pivoting over to him from Arrieta is, I think, a positive EV move because he's going to come in at no ownership. Like, I'm just playing everyone that's not
out. And there's also a thought of, like, Smiley coming in to relieve him at some point. I know Cheese was talking about.
I know he's not stretched out. He only did 42 pitches in his last outing, 67 the one before that. Like, he might be all right. He might go 65 pitches, but you're not really banking on a great outing from him. You're banking on a good enough outing to get it done over Arrieta and over Paddock.
Well, yeah, if you can tell me he's going to give me like 12 points, I'm in. You can't tell me that, but you don't need a lot. And a lot of it is based upon what everybody else does too, like you said. And just survival is kind of important as well. And of course, he opens up the really, really big bats. You want to like just load up the Dodgers or something like that. I don't think we have a Dodger lineup just yet, do we? I was just refreshing, and I'm really curious to see what they're going to roll out there today. I'm not sure. I'm assuming you're not on team BVP, and I'm not really. I just kind of peek at it sometimes, but every once in a while something kind of jumps off the page. And Kike Enrique Hernandez is known as a lefty masher. I think it's all predicated based upon his record versus Bad Bum, because he's 25 for 50 against Bumgarner in his life. How about that? Even that's good Bumgarner too, not what we're seeing today.
Yeah. Bumgarner today is trash. I love the Dodgers today.
Yeah, but everybody loves the Dodgers. I guess that's the whole point. You want to be different as far as pitchers, because you can't just say, here's the best pitchers, here's the best hitters, and I'm going to win. Like, that doesn't work that way in baseball. And even if those are the ones that go nuts, you're probably battling and jockeying for position based upon like your 1v1s and 2v2s, because everybody else is thinking the same thing. Sound about right?
Yeah, pretty much.
We kind of glossed over. We sort of mentioned the dude's name. Josh Fleming, another guy. If we can just get like 12 points out of Josh Fleming, he's not going deep. Tampa has a solid bullpen. He's going to throw maybe 75 or 80 pitches or something like that, but he is cheap. And, if he's just fine, if he's just okay, he's perfect. That's fine. That's good enough. Is Fleming somewhere in your plans or not so much?
I mean, he's in the mix. I don't really want to use him. Like, looking at lineup HQ, I think he's pegged at like 30% ownership.
That's a big number.
Yeah, I'm double checking right here. 34%.
Whoa.
I mean, what are the odds that Fleming outscores anyone else in that price range?
Well, you're talking his price range specifically?
I mean, he's
going to outscore Cahill, I think. He's going to outscore Kickham, I think. I think you might outscore Kickham, to be honest. Kickham is going to be the negatives. 32-year-old rookie?
Is he? What are the odds that he outscores Alcantara at half the ownership at only 700 more?
Alcantara, the odds of him outscoring Alcantara, 20%, 25%.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I don't know. I mean, that's just me pulling a number out of nowhere, but I think Alcantara is the better play. He's got a higher ceiling. Obviously, he can go deeper in the game. You can argue he's in. They both are in good pitcher ballparks. Obviously, the matchup. I think Alcantara's got a trickier matchup there with Boston. There is some relevant players in that Boston lineup still these days. Verdugo's competent and Devers is competent, and Bogart's top of the lineup's pretty solid. We've seen Dahlbeck hit some homers, and I want to say he's hit like homers in consecutive games, but he's also, he's a bit of a prospect for sure. But he's also a guy who's got some holes in his swing, and he'll strike out a good bit as well too. Arroyo's not much, obviously, at the bottom of the lineup, but Munoz, same deal. Not a very powerful stick either. Summarize the arms for us.
If in cash, play Paddock, play Gray, play Arrieta. Those are the three guys you go with. In big field even in smaller field tournaments, I'm fine with Paddock and those other guys. But in tournaments, the perfect pivot off of Arrieta is Alcantara. I like Gray way more than Paddock, so I'm willing to eat the extra price there and just take less usage. Alzolay, he's one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. I'm actually bumping up my ownership in him. I'm making sure that I do what I said on this show right now in my lineups, because I haven't.
You don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing because I'm making my lineups while we're on this show. Thanks to beautiful lineup HQ and Cardi's the Bad X.
Look at you. You're a company man all of a sudden.
Apparently.
I just pulled up the plate IQ, and I was curious to see how patient the Cincinnati lineup is. And that's bad news for Alzolay, because there's a lot of green popping when it comes to their walk percentage. Votto is happy to take a walk, 12.9%. Mr. Steal Your Girl, Jesse Winker, 10.8%. We got Stevenson. It's a small sample. Well, it's a sample of 3. 33%. He walked once. Collectively they're walking at 10.3%, which is a pretty big number for a team as a collective number, especially we're talking about Alzolay, who this is the last 2 years has a 16.3% walk percent. But again, there are some Ks there at 25.5%, but also the Cincinnati lineup does not strike out a ton either. 21.7%. There are some Ks there, but collectively pretty contact heavy, pretty patient. but also the extreme pitchers umpire. And also there's only so many options in the slate as far as pitchers. So I totally get it for tournaments. Catchers. You want to talk about catchers? That's exciting.
Yeah, we can talk about catchers. Let me just pull up handy dandy lineup HQ as I'm trying to multitask.
Smash the over, by the way, on lineup HQ. I don't know what the line was set at, but it was 2.5, 3.5. The over's already hit. Pay paper.
Yeah. So obviously, like Sanchez Woods is going to be a guy that was going to go with a decent amount over on Yahoo at least. But that game's probably not. I'm going to pretend
if
as
you're
if
playing on Yahoo, you better. It's the game's going off like now or like 6:40, isn't it?
I think it's going off at 6:05, so literally right after the show. But Real Muto's probably the best option. I know Quintera's been decent so far this season, but he's good. Him and Will Smith just above everyone else. Like Bumgarner is absolute trash. He's not good at all. He's way past his prime. His prime wasn't even that great, but he's getting crushed right now by Red. He's given up over a 400 WOBA and ISO. So Will Smith, Real Muto are probably the main two guys they end up going with. Outside of that, there's really not a ton to go with. Like I like the San Francisco Giants stack as a leverage play, but Paddock is good versus righties. Bart is just an all right catcher. So like I'm just rounding out my stack. Like if you want to, Vasquez is another good option. Noel's a fine option, but he's expensive. There's just really not a whole lot to go off of here for catchers. So I'm just throwing whoever's in my stack there.
Some of these guys never had a prime. Barsha is just super cheap, so I'm willing to play him a catcher. You got that double revenge game there in Miami.
And Mike Trout has 16 home runs this season.
Yeah, he's the best player of all time. It's not even a conversation.
No, it isn't a conversation. It's Barry Bonds.
I mean, he's good too, but like Trout's better.
I don't think so. If Trout were on steroids as much as Bonds were, then that'd be a different story.
Well, actually, he is. Wasn't he like? Is he like allowed to have a certain steroid? If you want to get all technical.
I mean, there's a different like.
I don't.
I mean, it's steroids. Like they have a compounding thing. So the more steroids you take, the bigger you get. So I think what was it? Canseco was putting in a massive amount of Dianabol into him when he was in the league.
Oh, wait, Jose Canseco was on steroids?
According to him.
Allegedly? According to him. I guess you don't say allegedly when he admits it, right?
Yeah.
All right. The double revenge game there, JT Realmuto and Jorge Alfaro, which I believe they were traded for each other. You know what the key piece in that trade was, though? It was not Jorge Alfaro. It was Sixto Sanchez, who's awesome. Sixto Sanchez. Get him in your Dynasty League, kids. I know it's not a DFS speak thing, but yeah, get yourself some Sixto. He is awesome. Catchers, moving on. First base, what do you have for me?
First base, Belt is by far my favorite play on the entire slate. At first base, he's way too underpriced. He's been so good this season. Paddock has decent splits. Like, you have a leverage play. He's not going to be as highly owned as he should be. Absolutely love Belt. If you only play Belt at your first base position, you're probably not doing a terrible job today. Hoskins, decent spot. Like, obviously, Alcantara is a big ground ball guy, and Hoskins has been on a tear recently, though. But he's a pretty big fly ball guy. It's not a great ballpark, but he's 4.3K like him. Outside of that, it's the Dodgers, Muncy, Bellinger, both of them, fantastic play. Moreland is a little bit underpriced, has a platoon split going up against Cahill. He's 3.9K, too cheap there. Outside of that, maybe Aguilar, not a bad decision. That's really it as far as first base.
Yeah, so for a couple things. Talk to me about playing these lefties. You're not getting a discount versus Mad Bum.
You're getting a big discount with Belt.
Okay, no, I'm talking about Belt's not playing against Mad Bum though.
Mad Bum. Sorry, I forgot. He's not on the he's not on the Giants anymore.
Well, then he still wouldn't be. Maybe in a near squad game or something like that. But but he's facing the big bats Bellinger. Depending on who cracks the lineup for LA, Muncy as well. Different positions, different strikes depending on. But let's just have the conversation now. Basically, what I'm asking is, are you willing, especially in this 6-game slate, are you willing to spend up? Despite lefty on lefty, people are always afraid of, and obviously it's a 9-inning game, and we don't expect you to be around that, for more than 5 or 6 at the most. How do you feel about spending up on these big power bats for the Dodgers that hit from the left-hand side versus Bumgarner? Because I'm not afraid.
I mean, I'm not really afraid. So Bum has just been terrible so far this season. Obviously, lefty-lefty matchup is not a good one. He, interestingly enough, like not a big sample size, but he's got decent numbers in terms of WOA and ISO going up against lefties so far this season. But he's still giving up a massive hard hit rate. massive fly ball rate. He is striking them out at a huge clip, but we look at the lefties in the lineup here. Muncy only has a 17% K rate versus lefties so far this season. Look to last season, I think it's slightly higher. Bellinger, not a terribly high K guy. Seager, not a terribly high K guy, even going up against lefties. So using these guys in your lineups, you're basically knowing that they're going to strike out less. They have a better eye. Hopefully they can hit in the air because they do at a fairly often clip. And so they're going to hit it hard. They're going to hit it in the air. And if they cannot strike out, then chances are decent that they can end up leaving the ballpark. So using these lefties, it's more of a situation for the entire slate. There's not a ton of great plays. They're just the best hitters on the slate, even in a lefty-lefty matchup. Plus, Bumgarner, guessing he's probably going to get beat up pretty badly. So because of that, he'll end up out of the game at a shorter, or have a little bit of a shorter leash would be my guess. You're kind of betting on the entirety of the lineup to just destroy him, get the bullpen in there, get the bad bullpen arms in there, and just have them go wild later on in the game. So while I do not prefer lefties, first base position, there's not a ton that I really want to end up playing. So it's Hoskins or Belt or Moreland, or you pay up if you have the cash. Because I don't really want to use either of the guys in the Cincinnati game just because that wind is terrible. So you're not really going to get a bomb out of them. You have a much more higher chance of getting a home run out of all the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, for cash games, if you're playing cash games, you're looking at Betts, you're looking at Pollock, you're looking at Hernandez before you're looking at Muncy, you're looking at guys like Bellinger. But they're also really, really strong plays in tournaments for the same reasons. By the way, just in case people weren't aware, just one of the tools we don't really talk about very often, in Plate IQ, we have a bullpen data, and we have like the guys that are most likely to come in if they're trailing by 5, or the guys that are most likely to come in if they're leading by 5. And we always talk about that team as a good bullpen. That team is a bad bullpen. But the bullpen is, there's good arms and there's bad arms. More for some teams, less for others. Understanding that, they're not going to throw out their – Josh Hader is not pitching. He didn't pitch last night, I'm going to guess. It was just 19-0. He probably didn't pitch in the game. Now, they were up 19-0. But the point is still, like, you're not going to roll out your best pitchers. Just kind of like use this tool here at Plate IQ if you ever want to see, like, hey, let's see what happens if Bumgarner gets his face punched in. What bullpen arms are likely to come in? There you go. Fire that up on the old Plate IQ. Tampa, talking about guys getting pulled in and out of games. This is my concern here. Kickham is going to be pitching for Boston. He's not going to be pitching long. Maybe 50 pitches, 60 pitches, something like that. 4 or 5 innings at the most, give or take. Tampa is notorious. They're smarter than everybody else. They get the most out of the little they have. Amazing organization. But they're super, super frustrating for DFS because Brosseau can hit 2 homers in his first 2 at-bats. But if a righty comes in, he might get pinch hit for. They don't care what you did last at bat. Oh, you hit a homer, you're hot. They don't care. They'll still pinch hit for you after the homer. How do you feel? What's your approach to this Tampa side? They have one of the highest team totals on the board. Not a great ballpark, but good matchup here versus Kickham. I don't know what to do with the Rays, especially the righties that are sort of the fringe guys like Margot. We see pinch hit for all the time. We've seen Brosseau get pinch hit for. What is your approach for the Rays tonight?
I mean, I like Renfroe.
He's another guy that might get pinch hit for. But, yeah, he can hit a home in the first inning. Who cares?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm just going with it like – I'm full stacking. Maybe they won't get pinch hit for if they're up by a decent amount. That's basically it. Like, I'm stacking everywhere today. I don't really have a hot take on many things outside of, like, I really like Meadows at 4.1K, but a lot of other people do too. Lau is obviously fine because he's lefty, but he's really expensive. Like, it's just the risk you take. Risk you take with the Rays, the risk you took with the Dodgers before. Like, some guys just might get swapped out and you're screwed, but I'm staying away from Margot. Just not worth it to me. And you're just hoping that they don't get pinch hit for.
Yeah. And Meadows is the one that feels the most secure. Not only is he one of their best hitters, but they're starting him lefty versus lefty. And they know, the Rays know that he's only getting 2 at-bats versus Kickham. He's not going to get a 3rd at-bat for him. And it's probably going to be a righty coming in, most likely. We shall see. But I'm just concerned. And that my at-bats are precious. I want 4. I want 5. I don't want 2 or 3. And we're probably going to see a couple of Rays get pinch hit for. And depending on the situation, it's hard to predict what's going to happen. A couple of these guys are probably going to get the hook, but who knows who it's going to be. But there are some guys that are more likely to get taken out of the game than others. And I would say Margot, Randy, and Renfroe potentially, and Brosseau. But, like, again, when you're playing tournaments, you're thinking ceiling. You're not thinking, oh, my God, what if they pinch it for in the 7th inning, which might happen, but you're going for the ceiling. All right, Keystone position, second base. What do you have for me, Grant?
Keystone position, second base. Probably my favorite play on the entire slate at second base for the price tag is Jazz. He's cheap. Like I'm not a big fan of Arrieta today. I said you're getting a little leverage off one of the more popular pitchers. He's 2K, so he's that. Then you already mentioned it, Kike. If he cracks the lineup, 3.5K against Bumgarner. Destroyed in the past. Bumgarner gets destroyed by righties. It's just real simple there. Flores, I know it's righty there, but he doesn't strike out a huge clip, which is one of the biggest things with Paddock. He strikes out righties at a massive clip, and Flores is all right at that. I like the Giants. Him and Solano, both guys that I'm fine with using in my lineups and in my San Francisco stacks because they don't have a huge K rate, so they're going to be putting the ball in play. Again, I'm planning on Paddock getting destroyed if I'm going to have a decent night here. So those will be the main two guys I end up going with on the Giants there at second base. Segura, not a bad play, a little bit too underpriced. I know Alcantara is a good ground ball pitcher versus righties, and it's not a great ballpark. Like there's
said Alcantara like 4 times. Can you can't pick up on
I'm intentionally doing it to mess
I don't want to call you out and say like you're clearly saying it wrong, but like you didn't pick up on it once and like maybe I'm saying that wrong. It's possible.
No, I literally heard you correct me once mid-sentence, and I'm like, well, now it's time to just mess with it.
It's funny, you know how to tilt me, and I know how to tilt you, and I did that earlier today because there's somebody on Twitter you don't follow, but I just like to send you their tweets and just like enrage you.
It makes me angry every time. I won't mention his name, but
it's my favorite thing to do, just to send you tweets about them. Like, and you don't get angry about anything, but this is the one thing I found.
Yeah, and I really have no reason to get angry at him or dislike him. I've never met the guy, but it just everything that comes out of his mouth, it's like one of those Step Brothers scenarios. Like, you just got a face I want to punch.
Now the chat's going to start guessing who it is. It'll be a fun game for sure.
And I don't know if they'll be able to guess it.
Would you confirm or deny? You won't confirm, will you? You wouldn't do that.
No, because I've never met the guy. Maybe he's a nice guy. I have a feeling he's just a douche, but
I don't know him either. But I just thinking, I follow him just so I see his tweets and I send them to you. It's a lot of fun.
One of the few people I actually muted on Twitter just because it would always make me angry.
Kike Hernandez, I'm assuming he's going to crack the lineup, and it's not just because of the BVP, but like, it's mad bum. The ballpark, I assume the weather, I'm assuming we're going to have the roof open. It's not Darren Ravel. It's somebody in the DFS world. We'll just say that. There you go.
Yeah, and Ravel is too easy to hate. Like, you can hate him for many reasons.
That's the chalk.
Yeah.
You don't like him for his 40 time?
I mean, Ravel or Vegas Dave.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, he's the worst. Yeah, he's the one that sold the Mike Trout rookie card too. Legitimately, apparently. Although we tried to sell a fake card a couple of years ago. There was an article in Forbes on him. I'm not sure if you saw that. But let's get back to the slate. I like Lux and Hernandez. You talk about Jazz Chisholm. By the way, we're speaking of Marlon's trades. You know where he came from? He was the guy they traded for Zach Gallen. There you go. He's really good power, really good speed in the minors. Still super raw, but at 2K, what do you want? 2K on 2K? Yeah, I'm in. A speed and power combination. He's going to strike out a good bit as well too. But who cares? He's buried in the 8 hole, but I'm probably more likely to play him at shortstop. But all right, anybody else that's worth mentioning here at second, or shall we jump to third?
Third,
hot corner, fire away.
Machado, he's good. He's very good. A guy that's underpriced that not a lot of people are probably going to be using is Escobar. He's actually a good pitcher in May. Again, not the greatest pitcher in the world. Not bad, just not great. So that 3.9K price tag is a little bit too low. Longoria, another guy that doesn't strike out a ton, but he's also not that great. Brosseau, if you're not worried about the pinch hit risk, he's a guy that you can definitely play. Has platoon split. He's a little bit cheaper on some sites than others. I know on DraftKings he's 4.7K. That's a little bit tough to go in there.
Pretty steep.
Muncy, already mentioned him. That's really it.
Yeah, third base is pretty thin for sure. Like Brian Anderson.
This slate is pretty thin.
It might get thinner too because we might lose a game. It's certainly possible. We want to stay tuned and see what Roth has to say. Or just stay tuned to the RG news feed, the Twitter feed, and do you have the RG app? I assume you do. You're being a company man. I assume you have that one as well. You get the.
I do in fact have that. The worst thing is like a lot of times I don't end up playing on the weekends, and so I'll be out looking at my phone like every 20 minutes while the lineups are coming out, or the few times where I don't turn my phone on vibrate, and at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, 30 notifications, and I just want to.
I got a feeling it's going to be nuts for football, especially this year. We shall see. I've already seen some injury stuff sprinkle in, but At least you have actives and inactives, which certainly helps out a ton, obviously, an hour and a half before the game. Let's jump back to shortstop. I mentioned Jazz Chisholm was a cheapie over there. I saw somebody in chat talking about Xander Bogaerts. Certainly he's in play. The ballpark's not great, but, again, beggars can't be choosers in this slate is whatever. We haven't talked about the Yankees bats, the Baltimore bats, like Torres, especially in FanDuel, is really good. If that game goes, we'll keep saying the same thing. Baez like $7 or $8 on Yahoo. Who I don't want to pick on Gray, especially in that weather, but he's basically the floor. Is there any bat you want in that game? I don't think I want anybody in that game right now.
I mean, with the weather now, like if Roth gives the okay, like play Torres, play LeMahieu, play Frazier, pricing to play Sanchez.
I meant Wrigley. I'm sorry. I was talking about the Chicago game, Cincinnati.
Oh, Wrigley? No, I don't want anyone from. I don't want any batters from that game. Like,
yeah,
there's anything can happen. Gray can get wild, but like I already said, I have large amounts of money on the under.
What is large? Is that 2 figures or 3 figures?
That's 4 figures.
Oh, look at decimals or no decimals?
No decimals.
Not before the decimal. Look at you, man, baller. All right. What do you have for me? Is there anything else here that's worth mentioning at shortstop, or shall we jump to the outfield? We only got a few minutes before we didn't really.
Tatis. We didn't really go through shortstop. Tatis, best play on the slate at shortstop. Seager, I don't mind, even though it's lefty. Again, he doesn't strike out a clip. There's Jazz. Just play Jazz.
All right. Outfield. I think Betts is probably the best play on the slate. Would you disagree with that?
Betts is the best. Well, are you talking about just raw points?
He's the one I really want. I mean, if I have one big spend, I want it to be Betts.
Yes, absolutely. Like Betts going up against Bumgarner, who's absolutely horrible. Betts is the top raw points bat on the entire slate. Just play him if you can. The top point per dollar play is probably Pollock, and he's 3.9K. Crushed lefties so far this season. Pollock is an absolutely fantastic play. Dickerson is too cheap at 3K. Really like him. McCutchen's too cheap. You look at his numbers in plate IQ this year versus righties. They're not great, but you compare them like line drive rate, foul ball rate, strikeout rate, all that to last season when he had better numbers, and it's just really simple. They line up, so he's just getting unlucky for the most part. JD, not a bad play there. Meadows, 4.1K. Yaz, already talked about. He's expensive, but I really like stacking him against Paddock. Rojas is cheap, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, JD feels like he's been disappointing, but there's still some power in that bat. I mean, historically, always smashes lefties. He's probably only going to get 2 ABs versus Fleming. I would imagine they wouldn't get the 3. They're asking in the chat about that Boston stack in general. I mean, they have a team total less than 4. It's not a great ballpark. Fleming hasn't been horrific, and they have a solid bullpen in Tampa, and it's kind of sort of a bullpen game. We're probably going to get 4 innings out of that pen, so I'm not really on it. I'm not here to say you can't do it because it's a 6-game slate, maybe a 5-game slate, whatever. But it's not at the top of my list. What say you?
No, I'm not. I have no ownership outside of maybe a few pieces of JD. I'm not stacking Boston.
Matt Joyce is super cheap. He's batting cleanup at 2.1K. It's certainly possible he's no one else pinch hit candidates. If a lefty comes in Philadelphia, I believe, has 2 or 3 lefty arms in the pen for what it's worth. Marte, difference in price on FanDuel and DK is pretty drastic. Starling Marte is 4.9 on DK. I want to say he's 2.8 or 2.9 on FanDuel. Dickerson and FanDuel, that 1-2 combination is pretty cheap. And the Marlins were the 2nd or 3rd day in a row, maybe 4th day in a row. They're in play. Certainly, it's a small slate, and Arrieta we don't really respect, and the prices kind of speak to kind of open things up to some degree. We have a 2v2 in the chat. Your boy Alzaloy, along with the Philadelphia catcher, not JT Realmuto, but Knapp. So Alzaloy and Knapp versus Alcantara and Smith. Who is Smith? Is that a catcher?
Will Smith.
Oh yeah.
I'll go with Alcantara. I had to make sure I messed it up for you. I almost got confused there. And Smith.
Well, it's funny because I actually did have a conversation with somebody today about this because they butchered it, and I, of course, couldn't help myself. And they're like, no, I heard somebody else say it. And I'm like, because I heard the Marlins broadcast, and that's the authority, right? The team that he's on. And they're the only ones that basically say the name right, apparently, because we went to a couple.
I mean, no one knows your real name, Daniel.
This is true. And that's fine. I've been called worse, for sure. We're going to step aside in just a couple of minutes for Crunch Time. We do want to remind you guys again, Crunch Time is for premium users. But today, what are we giving away today, Grant? I'm scrambling because I have it written down here and I couldn't find it for a second. The football season's going down. It's we have Showdown we're giving away for free. Tambo and the Luch are going to be all over that, taking you guys all off the lock. Make sure to check that out here on the feed. And Tambo crushes golf, and I'm assuming he's going to do the same thing as far as, if you guys aren't aware of Tambo, I've recently become aware of him and saw him do some of his golf shows, and he's fabulous. So make sure to check that out. Give me some stacks. Who we stacking up, Grant? Give me a couple guys that are going to homer. Give me somebody like you have a bold fade. Give me everything. Give me all the good stuff.
Fade Paddock, stack the Giants, Belt's hitting a bomb.
Just one stack? That's all you're going to give me? Just Giant. That's all I need. It's just Giants. Stack them up.
Okay, well, let me look at my highest owned stack. I mean, Dodgers and
that's the
Dodgers and the Padres, like, are the obvious ones. But Marlins and Giants are your big field stacks.
Last but not least, keep an eye. If you guys are not premium members, well, if you are premium members, of course, watch Crunch Time. Crunch Time's got, I believe it's only a 6-game slate, maybe a 5-game slate. And we have Cardi, we have STL Cards, and we have Kevin Roth, who's going to be all with the weather game as far as New York. Keep an eye on what's going on with the Yankees. Follow Roth, follow the RG account, all that good stuff. All right, we got to go. Enjoy your football tonight. Go Heat. That was Grant. This was baseball. I was Dean. Thanks, Devin. We're out of here. Holler.